Currently work for Rev Auto Collection. I've been there 3.5 years. We have 30 dealership websites I'm over. About half of them are in-house that I've built so far. Before Rev Auto, I was full-time at the Texarkana Gazette. Worked there for about 7.5 years. We had about 4 newspaper websites I've managed in-house. And the other websites were managed out of Little Rock. But I've been doing freelance development in Texarkana for about 14 years now through webproj.com. And I've been in it a long time to get to see a lot of trends. A lot has changed in 14 years on the internet. A lot of people ask me, like, what did I want to be when I grew up when I was a kid? And my job wasn't invented yet when I was a kid. So I couldn't answer correctly. It was impossible.
Did you ever use Front Page?
I did.
Yeah.
I was actually, personally, probably my first website I ever designed was probably on the Front Page. So, and that was a hot mess. It was terrible. So, see if my clicker's gonna work. I may have to mouse it. All right, so the technology overview is web technology. We divide it into front end and back end, that makes the website. Your front end languages most popularly are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And we do a pretty good job teaching those in school nowadays. The templating languages are pretty new. The reason why, these are front end languages, and the reason why we use them is a lot of times they're safer, they're more readable. You ensure there's no logic because you can't use logic. So it's a good best practice to use one. The most common templating languages, you've got Blade, it's the default Laravel templating language. Twig is a common templating language. It's a PHP specific, but it's based kind of like a syntax similar to Django, which is the Python. It's kind of like the Python Laravel. And JNPUG is what a lot of people use on JavaScript and Node. And Mustache is used in several places, and Vue has a Mustache style templating language. The popular backend languages are PHP, Python, .NET, Ruby, and JavaScript. I use PHP. Python's, I would say PHP is probably the most common. Python, I would say, is the second. You've got the Django framework on it. .NET, some people use .NET. I started off on .NET, but I tend to prefer PHP, so I switched. Ruby's popular because you've got Ruby on Rails. It's not popular really around here, but in some of the startups will use it. JavaScript can be a backend language. It's a trend that is pretty new, and you can actually have JavaScript on the front end and back end, but it's not common yet, and it's not very mature. So there's your popular front-end frameworks, Angular, React, Vue, Meteor, Ember. Probably the big three, the first three are the most common, and I'll go over the advantages of the individuals later. And Meteor and Ember is a little older, and they're still going to be around because you don't want to throw away your code. But that's the most common ones. Your back end, you've got Laravel, Django, Symfony, Ruby on Rails, Express, and Node. Express and Node are JavaScript, Ruby on Rails is Ruby, Symfony's PHP, Django is going to be Python, and Laravel's PHP. So I prefer, if I were going to do, for sure, a back-end framework project, I'd probably go Laravel because I'm comfortable with PHP. But if you already know Python, it's a no-brainer to go Django. Symfony's makes a little bit less decisions for you. I think Drupal uses a lot of Symfony components. But that's another good PHP option. WordPress is by far the most popular CMS platform. It's not even close. So everybody uses it. It doesn't have the best coding backend in it. So like developers tend to hate it with a passion. but it's really good at what it does. It's a good blog. It's good for basic websites. It's got lots of support, big community, lots of plugins. You can get up and run very quickly, so it's good for what it does. Joomla and Drupal are kind of a step closer to a framework, but they're not. They're going to, some newspapers may use them. They're more flexible than something like WordPress. Magento's definitely the most common e-commerce CMS. It's extremely complicated, big learning curve. I've seen it a couple of times, and it's getting pretty old. They really need to rewrite it. ProcessWire is actually my favorite CMS that I use because it's I'd say closer to a framework, but it's still a CMS because out of the box it lets you do a lot of input sanitization, and it'll have an image library, and so it gives you a lot of functionality out of the box to kind of speed up your project. Very flexible. Actually has no front-end language at all. It just handles the back-end only. You just bring your own front-end. So most of the web runs on Linux or Unix. Sorry, I'm trying to go really fast because this is a huge topic. It's estimated 70 to 98% is probably if the web is on Linux or Unix. It's hard to tell because obviously not every server will report what it is. But that was the two sources I looked up to try to get an idea on it. Part of it's probably licensing because it's free. It's very secure. It's been around a long time. Got a lot of developer support. It's open source. Macs are based on Unix. Supercomputers are 99% Linux. Mainframes are Unix. PlayStation's Unix. Android is Linux. iOS is Unix. FreeNAS is FreeBSD. So students, I don't know how many students nowadays really spend time learning Unix or Linux, but it's an extremely important skill if you're going to be into web development to learn. The popular distributions are going to be Ubuntu, Debian, CentOS, and Red Hat. Ubuntu is obviously part of Debian, so it's kind of like the child of Debian. CentOS is based on Red Hat. It's the free version. If you go Red Hat, you're going to have like enterprise support and you're going to pay for it. But CentOS is probably the most common when it comes to web hosting companies. I know HostGator, GoDaddy, and all them are going to use CentOS. You need to learn file permissions, user and group permissions. You need to know how to create symbolic links, view logs for errors, and if you get hacked, you need to know, where did it start, how to patch it, update your software, edit your config files. It's very important to know this, especially if you're going to work for a large company. A lot of these GoDaddy style small hosts will give you all these defaults. So you'll have your web server that'll handle a small number of connections. Your database will have maybe a couple of megabytes of cache memory configured. Your backend language may have a timeout that's set really low so you can't process anything. You got to go in and bump these up, and it's good for them because you're using less of the RAM you're paying for. But you need to be able to go tell your server, if I'm paying for 4 gigs, don't use 8 megabytes for my query cache. I need to bump that up. Permission issues are important because by default, a lot of these small hosting companies are built for one man hosting a bunch of websites. So what happens is they've configured your web server, whether it be Apache, Nginx, whatever your Lightspeed, but your web server will actually log in as the website user to view that website user's files. The thing about that is it's so much slower because it protects you if you're hacked, because say for example, which happens all the time, you've got a WordPress website on a URL, it's in a folder, it gets hacked, and then the script says, well, I'm going to recursively just start embedding spam code in all the files. Well, and that happens. So what it does is, since Apache is running as the user and not as Apache itself, it can only touch the files that in its own directory. So it protects all your other clients. But it's probably 90% slower to do it this way. So if you work for a company like Facebook or you're starting up a web app, you don't want that. You want actually for Apache to run as Apache, not worry about signing it to a user, and just give it run of the system. So if you've got those Linux skills, you can actually make those decisions, configure Apache to run the way it needs to run. Symlinks are important because, say for example, you're on GoDaddy or you're on non-host or cheap shared hosting account, or even a VPS. Well, SSD storage is what everybody's using now because it's so much faster. The problem is with SSD storage, it's about $1 a gig a month. So if you're hosting video, large files, it gets extremely expensive very quickly. 100 gigs is pretty common, that's $100 a month. And for a VPS, that's a lot. So if you can create a symlink in something like Amazon Web Services, if you have root access, I can mount a hard drive array of just spinning disks for some cheap storage that might run, say, couple of pennies a gig instead of $1 a gig. You can actually put your video media in a video subfolder, and it just automatically goes to cheaper storage. That's one of the pros of Amazon Web Services, is you can get in there and make those kind of changes, where you can't if you're using a shared hosting service. That's pretty good on that. All right, so best practice number 1 is improve your website speed. A lot of people don't even look at this. It's easy to see because there's services that you can test your website speed. There's a bad user experience. They don't rank well. One of Google's most recent algorithm adjustments is they're going to pull up your website and judge it based as a phone and a desktop experience. And if you've got a bad phone experience, or you're using, I've seen websites with 25 megabyte videos on the homepage. I mean, these things, Google's going to downvote that. So you really need to have some styles in that, hey, if I'm on a mobile connection, this guy could be using his data, he could be on 3G. We need to swap that video out for something else. More people on mobile and desktop now. That's surprising because people are on their phones all day, but it's true. So if you ignore how you're handling mobile, you're really missing out on a lot of traffic. It needs to be easy to use. I'm not saying responsive web design is even a trend anymore. That's been about 5 years ago that it hit, but people still aren't really paying attention to it. And then just people are going to leave if it's slow. So it hurts your business. So how to fix it? Optimizing your images is by far going to be the lowest hanging fruit. I've seen this. I mean, I've had graphic designers that will design website graphics and they'll upload their 300 dpi print photos to the web. I mean, these things are 10 megs each. You get in there, save for web, put it as a JPEG or a PNG, maybe it's 300K. So it's huge. You're going to cut 5 minutes off your load time. So you got to watch that. JPEG photos are great for high colors. If you take a photo, like if you're a photographer, that's still the best. PNGs are great for logos, low color combinations, transparencies. JPEG can't have a transparent background. Size them out. So average camera is probably, say I change my color scheme, well, that file name has to change so the browser knows, well, let's grab a new file. So and there's various methods for busting cache. A lot of them involve using build tools, and I'll go into them later, but it'll automatically merge your files and timestamp them for you. Some CMSs will use minification plugins automatically, so that as you edit your on-page CMS using the CMS will actually function as an IDE, and you type your styles in, it'll automatically compile it into a file for you, which is nice. So CMS caching is important as well. Full is great because, say you've got 50 queries on a page. I've seen WordPress go up to 100 queries. You don't want to make 100 database queries for every person. 1,000 people hit your page, it's a lot of database queries. A full cache, the whole page is basically a text file, doesn't touch the database. The problem is if your website requires a login, well, everyone's seeing different information based on their login. So then you have to move to partial caching. You'll have maybe 5 or 10 database queries, but the part of the page that is hitting your database so hard is actually a text file or whatever. Time to first byte is important. Google looks at this. If your database is making a bunch of calls, it's going to hang up your website from delivering that first response. So database caching improves that. Cheap hosting, a lot of times oversold. So they put too many clients. I'm guessing a cheap hosting like a GoDaddy, $5 a month, they could have 400 or 500 clients on one server. So what happens is that CPU is locked up. And even more so than the CPU, the storage system doesn't have enough available I/O to give you a quick response. So that's how you improve your time to first byte. And actually in Chrome, you can inspect your page and it'll tell you what your time to first byte is just by right-clicking a page. So in addition, when you minify and merge your CSS assets or JS assets, it's also going to reduce the number of file requests because there's overhead every time you grab a file. That's important. I mean, we're in IT, we know if we take a folder full of 1,000 files, it's going to copy slower. even if it's the same size as one large file. So it works the same way with HTTP. Webpack and Gulp, great ways to minify and merge your CSS and assets. CMS plugins work. A CDN is important to use for your large files, like your frameworks, because what happens is they'll put a 1 year timestamp on say you're using Bootstrap as your CSS framework. Well, that's a really large file, but it's probably already on the user's machine. So if you are using a CDN for your Bootstrap, it doesn't download at all. So it's already on the user's machine, most likely. gzip, deflate, these are web server plugins. So if you're using Apache, you'll set that there. I can turn that on, and every text that I send out to a user, the server CPU is going to compress it on the fly automatically and give you 69% savings. It works great with all these new JavaScript frameworks because you a lot of times have JSON objects that are driving them, which is pure text. So you can take, say, a database. I just did some code on Gregorado where I loaded every piece of inventory across 30 dealerships into the search page. Instead of going out to MySQL to pull every little change they make, I've got about a 5 megabyte text file. It'll sit on the page, but the user only sees about 200K when they download the file because the server compresses it on view. So 200K, that's smaller than a banner.
What's the optimal time to the first byte?
I would say a couple hundred milliseconds is what you want to look for. Google Page Speed Insights will actually give you tips. It'll tell you, hey, turn on your browser caching, turn on your server compression. It's free. You just Google Page Speed Insights, and it will actually give you a rundown of how well you're doing. Pingdom Website Speed Test, it'll tell you how many assets you have on a page. If you want to see, well, I've got 10 banners. This GM is wanting me to add 10 more, and this is going to bring my page size up to 20 megabytes. Well, I can go to this tool. They'll tell me how many megabytes I've got so far, and I can say, no, that's a terrible idea. All right, so JavaScript is definitely a trend, and that's because it's been around for a long time as JavaScript, plain JavaScript, and jQuery, but these frameworks are new. And so jQuery is not even a framework, it's more of a library. It's for manipulating something on your page, whether it be content, styles. It is a way to select an element of HTML and mess with it. But something like React is a framework that you can base your project on. Facebook uses it. It's got a PHP. They use a PHP backend, but you don't have to. Angular is by Google. It's definitely probably the highest learning curve if you want to learn one. It uses TypeScript that compiles into JavaScript, which makes it quicker. Vue's the lowest learning curve. It's in the Laravel ecosystem. It's got a lot of traction. It uses template syntax. You don't have to worry about TypeScript, so it's easy. You basically just pass it JSON objects, and it hooks it up to elements, and everything's magic. So it's pretty awesome. Ember, React, and Angular. It's 2 or 3 years old, so it's based on some of these older frameworks, and it kind of takes the best of all of them. Backbone, Knockout, and Polymer are older, so they're still going to be around because you don't want to throw your code away, but I wouldn't exactly start a project on them either. So they're cleaner, more organized, display search data faster, two-way data binding is awesome. I mean, you're talking about anytime you edit that variable, say you're viewing products, the view, what the customer's looking at automatically changes. It's almost like a chat app, live reloading without even refreshing your page. It's a lot of power, faster, less server resources. You're not doing database queries every time you hit sort, because all the sorting is done on the user CPU in the browser. Using a CSS framework is imperative. You have to. It's just, there's no downside. You can use Bootstrap, UIKit, Foundation. All these are set on Flexbox. So Bootstrap 3 isn't, but 4 is. Flexbox is really important because for whatever reason, the web's been around for forever. 10 years in technology terms is forever. But we can't figure out how to vertically and horizontal line elements well, so we have Flexbox. It helps you with columns. Responsive is baked in, phone, tablet, phablets, widescreen support. So you get wider pages. Back in the day, 10 years ago, we all programmed to the lowest common denominator. which is probably a 13-inch tube screen monitor TV looking thing. So it's probably 960 resolution on your width, so you had that 960 grid you worked with. Now we can build a 1920 by 1080 experience for someone in HD and not punish other users, so we need to. Default Bootstrap can go actually a little wider. I think it is probably good for a 15-inch laptop, but isn't the best for, say, a widescreen TV or maybe even a 27-inch iMac or a PC. Is actually, you have to edit the default Bootstrap to actually make it look good. But those are some things to look for. You're documented well, there's big communities. A lot of the things that people bash these things for is I don't want to look like everybody else. I don't want to use Bootstrap because Bootstrap is Bootstrap. But that's not true because the default Bootstrap, you can go bones only. You don't have to use any of the design elements. You can make it look however you want. And actually, you can't even tell someone to do some Bootstrap unless you look at the source. All right. This is an example. Of how to use a responsive column in Bootstrap. This is 3, but it's similar to 4. Basically what I'm telling is any div I want to move based on the screen size, I throw in, if I want an extra small screen, I can throw in a width setting versus a small screen, a width setting, and I can add as many breakpoints as I want that they offer. A Bootstrap is by default a 12-column grid. You can change that and download a custom and include it in your project. You can go to 14 column or something if you want a little bit less padding. But 12 column is pretty much what everybody uses. So this is going to say on a phone, I may want this photo to take up the whole width of the page, whereas on maybe a small tablet, I want it to be half and half. You got more screen real estate to work with. I don't want there to be a bunch of empty space. That's how that works. It's important with technology now to consider high DPI retina graphics. Not everybody does this. In 2012, we had the first laptops with retina screens, so it's been a little while. But if you load a regular graphic to a website, it's going to be blurry on a high DPI screen. Phones have high DPI screens. So it's really important to do this. The way that Apple decided to do this is they use pixel doubling. So a decent way to deal with it is just to make your photo twice as big and just still allow your photo to be the regular size. It's just bigger. And that way you've got those extra pixels to work with. The problem is that if you do that, everybody, even not on a retina screen, is downloading a photo that's twice as large as it should be. So if you include something like retina.js, it'll actually dynamically serve up the correct file based on the user's screen. So I'll just I'll make this file, it'll automatically tag on an @2x, it'll change it out. And as long as I make both files, we'll get a sharp, big image if they're on retina, or we'll get a faster downloading file if they're not. You have the option, you can go 144 DPI for your size that you're wanting, or you can still double it at a 72 DPI. Retina is why that we have fun awesome. Also, we're seeing icons everywhere. A lot of times when I add icon rows to websites, people ask me to remove them, but that's why they're so popular right now. So CAPTCHA's a trend that we've seen. A lot of my clients just want their email address on their contact us page, and I always recommend them to not do that, just because there's crawlers crawling the internet all the time, grabbing off your email and spamming you. So it's very easy to do that. So never put an email address into your website's text. You want to use contact forms, which are usually server-side languages, so there's nowhere in the browser that they can see where it's emailing. It's all server-side. The math box was popular a couple years back, Squiggle box. Those are really hard to read, and people just get frustrated and they don't fill them out. Google invented to check the box to make sure you're not a robot. I don't know how they do it, but it's free. So switch to that. It's a lot easier. It's magic. Hidden form fields, I've done this as a tactic in a lot of cases. If I don't want to use a Google API like to check the box, I can throw in an extra empty field at the end of my form. And if a robot is plugging in data in all my form fields, about Niagara or whatever, and hit submit, well, they're going to fill out my honeypot. So what I do is if you filled it out, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide it with CSS, but it's going to be there in the HTML. and they don't really look at your CSS file. So if they fill it out, they can see it. I just delete it. I don't send the email. So that's a good way to do some self-filtering. Page builders are popular. You've got less boring pages. Back in the day, it was really hard to do this. You would end up with a back end with maybe a rich text box, and you'd plug in your text to be a wall of text. You may have a floated image, maybe. It's real boring. People don't read text, they skim. So we kind of moved to a design where that you've got small amounts of text in pretty rows, and you're built for just to stack rows on top of each other. They're more creative. They're more attractive. Another reason why we've switched to this is because of responsive design, and we're using the same website for mobile and desktop. We don't have different websites anymore, which we used to, which was a problem with tablets, because which one do you show? You don't know which one to show. But when you've got sidebars on something like Bootstrap, it's going to shoot all the way to the bottom of the page when it resizes usually. And a lot of times you want those sidebars to be seen at the same time as your content. So really we've been moving away from sidebars in general for a while. You'll still see them on blogs, but in general, you're seeing less and less sidebars. Fusion Builder, Visual Composer, those are WordPress plugins for row building. They're pretty good. They're hard to add custom elements to, so I wouldn't blame you for building your own. It's free that way, Visual Composer. In Fusion, I think you have to pay for them. Probably about $20 a website. Animation's getting really good with CSS now. They've improved CSS to have a lot of built-in animation without even needing JavaScript. Animate.css is a great library you can use for free. You just include it in the top of your head and just add a tag to your element and it's automatically animated. It's very easy. Animate on scroll is popular. Instead of animating on maybe click or animating on hover, you can say as soon as the user scrolls down to my row, start moving things around. So that's a common trend. Scroll Spy is great because with Scroll Spy, we've been doing a lot of one-page websites. Say a user doesn't have much content, they can't think of what to put on a 4 or 5 page website. We'll just leave the nav bar up there and have each link jump down to a section of that website. So with Scroll Spies, we're working down and scrolling through a website. It'll actually highlight what page which row section you would be on and follow you through so you know you've actually visited all the pages. It's a JavaScript plugin. It's included in Bootstrap, I know. Carousels are great. Don't just put one photo. Make it like a little slideshow in a column next to your content. You don't have to stick with just one photo. Tooltips are great. For forms, if you want to explain something, it's very trivial to add a little tooltip if you hover over a form element. It's JavaScript, it's in Bootstrap. Advanced banners and sliders, this is pretty new. Instead of, back in the day, okay, you would build a slider, you would have, maybe use the Bootstrap one it came with, which is terrible, but it's all we had. So what we would do is we'd put an image there, we'd have one link option, because image maps died, which we used to make hotspots on images. But so you've got one link, you can animate the image, but with this, you can throw in layers. It almost replaces Flash because you can add 10 layers. Some of them are transparent. They all animate differently. You can have embedded video, YouTube links even, or YouTube videos actually embedded. You can put HTML code in them. They're just like mini websites, but they're slides that can go back and forth. Swipers are neat because if you're on mobile or even desktop, it'll mimic this, but it'll give you a finger swipe to switch banners. There's no need to click a left and right link or a small little bullet. You can just use your finger and swipe through with momentum. So that's a neat plugin to include. SSL Everywhere is very popular. It's no longer optional, it's free. SSLs a couple of years ago were about $100 a year, or more or less, depending on who you're going with. They're extremely expensive. Now it's automatic. It's automatic if you set up your server right. cPanel is probably the most common control panel I'd say. It's a PHP-based system. It'll automatically put SSL on every website on your whole server and automatically renew them I think it's every month, but there's no hassle. So if you don't have your website as SSL, you're going to start getting an unsafe message. So say, for example, I think Google's going to do this month or next month. Whereas if they're on your Contact Us page and it's not secure, they're going to tell the user that it's not safe to submit content. So it's very important. It's not enough just to have an SSL installed. You actually need to look at your HTML and make sure you're not linking to non-secure content. All your CSS, image, all this needs to be secure as well, so you may need to edit your website to, or you'll have an error that says mixed content. Some elements are not secure on this page, which will freak out your user. So, class names are important when you're naming your classes. Don't name something orange text class. Because what happens when your boss says, okay, let's make that purple. Well, all of a sudden you've got to edit all these websites with the orange text class to say purple text. It defeats the whole purpose of CSS. So what you can do is you can name a row, dark row, light row, name your link CTA link, and all of a sudden you can change out your colors by saying, I want dark row CTA link to be green, and then dark row I want it to be black. And you don't have to go edit all these pages, you edit one CSS file. Call to actions, auto industry is terrible about this. I have to have in-depth, long conversations with GMs all the time about this. We want 50 red buttons on one page. We want to, it's just like there's so much going on. There's something flying from the top, something coming up on the left. You got someone trying to, get you, chat with you. Well, they're chatting with you before you even do anything. And in a room, if everyone's yelling at the same time, you just shut down. You can't understand anything. So watch that and don't be like an auto dealer. Okay, so Webmaster Tools account, everyone that has a website needs one of these. This is how Google will communicate with you. If you get banned for, say you get hacked, if you're on WordPress, you'll probably get hacked at some point. So say you get hacked, Google's going to tell you, hey, you're linking to Bagra, so we're banning you from Google. And they'll say, as soon as you get this figured out, file a resubmission request here, tell us what you did to fix it, and we'll put you back in Google. So it'll also tell you if you have any crawl errors, if they're having problems seeing your content. It's free. You need to go create it. HANA codes are awesome. I'll show you a screenshot of that. Basically, it's a plugin for WordPress, and it's also a plugin for other CMSs. You can put a phone number, a Facebook link, you can put anything into one page. And then you'll get these little code snippets to put everywhere else. Your header, your footer, your content pages. You have 100 content pages and update them all at the same time by editing your definition. So it's extremely good practice. Google Analytics is free. For whatever reason, everyone wants a website, but no one wants to know what's happening. So if you're not going to look to see if people are looking at it, why even have a website? So create Google Analytics. It's free. You can see not only users and sessions, but I can see where you're coming from, city, state. I can see how long you spent on the website, what you clicked on, what your path was. I can see if you went from one page to another and didn't go from one page to a different one. The path is really neat. You can create goals, so I can set up a pay-per-click campaign, and I can say, well, if you hit the Contact Us page, I mean, that's worth something. I'm going to create a goal. Hey, you hit a Contact Us page, and I can pull a report in my Google AdWords and see this keyword gave me 20 Contact Us page views, but it also gave me a lead submission. So I want to value that even more. So Google Analytics will actually work with your pay-per-click campaign and help you figure out if you're wasting your money or not, which you don't want to do. Map listings, if you have a business and you have a map listing, you need to claim it because you can start uploading photos of your employees, of your business, and add your hours. And if something's inaccurate, you have an instant change. It doesn't have to be reviewed, and it helps your map listing to rank better in Google. If you don't have a newsletter, MailChimp is good. A newsletter is great because if someone visits your website, they obviously wanted to go there, but how do you get them to come back? What if they forget about you? Well, if you have a newsletter, you're going to bring them back as often as you want, as long as you don't spam them and make them mad. That's a screenshot of HANA code. This one not only has HANA code, but we have actually a drop-down implemented to where if you forget what you can use, you just look at your drop-down. You can bold it, you can change the color, you can move it around. Just put your variables however you want, and it will read however you set it. All right, so general trends, APIs and code snippets. Back in the day, our page was usually ran off one server. You had to pick, do you want .NET, you want PHP. Now, you may have 10 servers producing one page. That's just how things are going. You have a CAPTCHA ran from Google, you have a YouTube ran from Google, you have a MailChimp form that people are filling out that doesn't even touch your server. It'll actually add their MailChimp account. You'll have a Google Maps that's embedded in your server, in your page. You'll have your stacks embedded. You'll have transactional email. So instead of my web server sending an email, I can say, well, I want to send in blue, or I want MailChimp to send an email on my behalf. And that's really good if you've got a really big company, because say you have 10 web servers that are all behind a load balancer, for example. Well, which one's going to send the email? Well, you use transactional email, and it's a load balance solution, and it'll all send from the same place. You have shopping carts, Foxy Cart's a good one I use sometimes. Facebook, you can embed into your sidebar. Twitter, you can embed. Instagram, all that, you can embed. It's very easy to do. A lot of times, backend used to make HTML. PHP used to spit out HTML all over the place. Now, a lot of times, it's just making JSON. And the reason for that is because you can have your web app and your mobile app all read the same JSON file. Your backend may only just handle data, and you may have JavaScript on your mobile app and your website that just formats it and makes it pretty. Cloud, database as a service. Cloud's not new, but database as a service is pretty new. So, because a lot of the reason why the NoSQL took off so bad, or so fast, is that it's really hard to get a relational database like MySQL or MS SQL to scale. When you have database as a service, they handle all this for you behind the scenes. So you may have a replicated database across 3 servers, and you just connect to it, insert all your data. And it may be, your data may be located in 3 data centers. You can actually specify to something like Amazon Web Services, I want to replicate a database on 3 data centers, and just give me the login. And you'll pay a very cheap price for that. So that's a pretty new service. Network file system's the same way. I can actually, say I've got 10 machines load balanced behind a load balancer, and someone uploads a file. Well, it goes to one of those machines. So if someone's viewing another one, they're not going to see the file. When you have a network file system as a service like this, all 10 machines may be serving files and have Apache and PHP installed, but they all connect to the same network file system that's a different load balance solution. So you may have 10 servers that run file systems that are all synchronized instantly, and all the web servers connect to that one point. This is Amazon Web Services. That's about 30 cents a gig, so it's not too expensive. 10 cents a gig is probably what you're going to run on one server for an SSD storage if you're using Amazon. If you use something like GoDaddy or NoneHost, it's probably going to be $1 a gig. So this is still very cheap. CDNs, load balancers, these equipments are very expensive. With the cloud now, everybody has access to it. It may cost $20 a month. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a load balancer. Snapshots are instant. If you want to upgrade, say I want to upgrade PHP, I want to move from PHP 5 to 7 because it's 1,000 times faster. Well, what if I break my install? I can make a snapshot right before I run that upgrade and roll back. And if I have a Amazon Web Services, actually, I can tell it to upgrade one machine at a time. Take it out of the rotation, upgrade it, and if it mounts and works, it'll do the rest. With something like a small web host, you do an upgrade, you go down. There's no load balancer. So that's another advantage of the cloud. Object storage, I was talking about 10 cents for SSD storage in Amazon Web Services. This is pennies. So it's not high latency, but it's good for videos, it's good for pictures. Object storage is cheap, it's very scalable. Transcoding as a service is new. You can, instead of powering up a virtual machine image, you're just going to say, hey Amazon, I'm going to send you a file and you transcode it and tell me when you're done. So you'll pay per item. You don't have to worry about having servers running and doing nothing. So the thing about cloud is it's all do-it-yourself. That's why a lot of people don't use it. It's very complicated. Support's $100 a month, so you're kind of on your own if you're on a budget. So a lot of times if you use a GoDaddy, they got terrible support, but they'll help you a little bit. If something goes down, they'll fix it. They're just not going to help you configure anything. All right, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. I think Amazon's probably still in the lead, but man, Google and Microsoft are making up. So I prefer Amazon just because they offer more. A lot of people don't care about their website. I know a lot of people don't look at it, they don't use it. It's important. All information is a bad first impression, broken links are bad. Slow, old, and ugly is bad first impression, and no website at all is no first impression. So you want to actually pay attention to this. That's all my presentation. I have some demos. How are we doing on time?
If you need to leave, go ahead and go, but if you don't, you can go ahead and keep going.
Okay. Well, if you want to look at any of these, I can pull them up, or if not, I appreciate the opportunity.
If you guys want to keep going. Okay.
Open up a couple of them. All right, so.
It's only 10 minutes after 11.
How long did I go?
Looks like infinity.
It's 12 minutes. It's a lot of information to cover. I try to talk fast. Oh man, I'm not gonna try this.
I was gonna say will it work in Internet Explorer?
Yeah. Ask me later. Yeah, I don't even know if this is updated.
There we go. Yeah, just close that tab.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. All right. Let me refresh it. Okay, so video in sliders is popular. I like to limit this to about 8 seconds. I've seen people put minutes in these, but about 8 seconds is about all that I would say you want to do. It's pretty neat. See how on scroll, this little play button popped up from the bottom to the top. That's a little animation. It didn't show it, but this row right here, as soon as you go to it, these are actually 2 layers, and they will fly in. One will fly in from the left, one will fly in from the right. So you can actually take individual layers and animate them individually. It's pretty neat. I don't know if it'll keep me there. Computer's a little slow. These all flew in from the bottom. It just adds a little nice touch. I mean, people are trying to decide if they can trust you or not, if you're a top company or not in the area. If you can really impress them with your website, it almost levels the playing field, even if you're not one of the biggest companies. So, let's see what this one does. All right, we got some animation and snow effects, little zoom out functions. These are neat. These are the animation libraries. This one's pretty neat. So I can go through and browse what kind of animation I want. Say we'll flip X. And these are super easy. You just say flip X as a class and say I want to animate and flip X on your class, and it automatically will do it on hover or a click. Very, very, very neat. Animate on scroll. I'll link that one up. I might have to Google it. Those are some examples. Thank you very much.
This has been a production of the Texarkana Area Information Technology Users Group. We are an industry organization representing IT professionals and business owners in Texarkana, Arkansas and Texarkana, Texas. Texarkana Area Information Technology Users Group meets on the 3rd Friday of each month for an hour of camaraderie, food, and mutual enrichment. Each meeting, a member or vendor presents on an IT topic relevant to our membership. We invite all area IT professionals, students, and stakeholders to participate in these discussions and build personal and professional relationships that add value to you and your organization. If you would like more information, please go to www.facebook.com/TxkUG or visit our website at www.TxkUG.com. Thank you again for watching this presentation by the Texarkana Area Information Technology Users Group.